Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been almost a year since I've done the Xbox Series X review, and it's taken just as long to not only save up enough cash to buy the PlayStation 5, but also to find the PlayStation 5 available for sale at a store. There are worldwide shortages of the PlayStation 5, as many of you know, so it's very rare to be able to find a store that actually has stock of the PlayStation 5. I was quite fortunate to actually find it at Macro in Silver Lakes in Pretoria, who actually had 3 in stock. So without further ado, I'm going to start unboxing the PlayStation 5, and then thereafter I'm going to do a full review on the console, controller, and some of the games.
Inside the box you get a single DualSense controller, a USB-C charging cable which is different from the cable used on the PS4 to charge the controller. You get a single HDMI 2.1 cable, a stand for the PlayStation 5, power cable, a couple of manuals, and a catalog of accessories which you can purchase for the PlayStation 5. Taking a look at the design of the console, when looking at pictures on the internet, the console design always looked a little bit strange to me. However, seeing it in person, the design is actually quite contemporary and cutting edge, although the console is quite big in size. Comparing the controller to the Xbox Elite controller and the Xbox Series X controller, the PlayStation 5 controller is a bit heavier as compared to the Xbox Series X controller, which is a good thing in my case. If you look at the back of the controller, you'll notice that the handles on the PlayStation 5 controller have a slightly textured feel, which improves the grip on the controller. However, it isn't as textured as compared to the Xbox Series X controller. The PlayStation 5 controller also has adaptive triggers and a built-in microphone, which the Xbox controllers don't have. I haven't had a preference between the Xbox and PlayStation controllers in the past. However, once I played through a few games, I'll give my opinion a bit later. For the purpose of this review, I've connected the PlayStation 5 to a LG CX 4K TV, which is capable of running 4K at 120 Hz. As you can see, the PlayStation next to a 55-inch TV is quite big in size. Starting up the PlayStation 5 interface, you'll notice that the PlayStation Store has a lot more prominence. If you subscribe to PlayStation Plus, you immediately gain access to the PlayStation Plus collection of games for the PS5 for free, which is sort of a greatest hits of PlayStation 4. If you haven't played these titles before, then it's really good value for money. The interface itself is very similar to the PlayStation 4 interface, albeit slightly more refined. The interface is split into two main sections, namely games and media, whereas media containing your applications for streaming such as Netflix, Prime Video, etc., as well as any types of media players. Instead of long pressing the PlayStation button, now you just slightly tap it to get into the power off option. Moving on to games, the PlayStation 5 comes bundled with Astro's Playroom, which is a small tech demo of what is possible with the PlayStation 5 controller. It takes full advantage of the adaptive triggers as well as the motion controls of the PlayStation 5 controller, showing you what the controller is actually fully capable of doing. It's a fun little game and it showcases the history of the PlayStation right from the PS1 all the way down to the PlayStation 5. I found that the game really had an innovative way of demonstrating what was possible with the PlayStation 5 controller. Time will tell if other developers actually utilize all of the additional functions of the PlayStation 5 controller to its full capability. I have to say, I thought at first the adaptive triggers was more of a gimmick than anything else. However, playing a few other games, such as Guardians of the Galaxy, you notice that the adaptive triggers tends to provide you more feedback as you're playing the game. For example, when firing a weapon in Guardians of the Galaxy, as the character ran out of ammo, the adaptive trigger became a bit harder to press, So this gives you a non-visual indication that you need to reload your weapon, which I thought was quite cool. All in all, I'd say playing with the PlayStation 5 controller was quite an enjoyable experience. The controller was quite comfortable and the controls were quite precise. Some users have reported issues with controller drift. However, in my test controller, I haven't had any issues as such. Some PlayStation 4 games have either been remastered or patches been applied to make these games run better on the PlayStation 5. So these enhancements comes in the forms of better frame rates. Some games allow you to run at 60 frames per second, and other games have visual upgrades which make the games look a bit better. So you'll notice things such as better anti-aliasing, better lighting in games, and also some games have the option to run ray tracing, which is a new method of computing shadows in a game, making the game look a bit more realistic. The addition of the SSD immediately improves loading times of games. With games such as Spider-Man, whereby if you use fast travel, the game would load a loading animation until it loaded a specific part of the map that you wanted to travel to. Whereas on the PlayStation 5 version of Spider-Man Miles Morales, these load times are completely non-existent. This has led to more innovation in development of games, with games such as Ratchet & Clank allowing you to transport yourself between different dimensions or different levels without any load time as such, which would not be possible on any of the previous generation of consoles. So it is definitely a welcome addition. However, keep in mind that storage space on the SSD is limited. After installing the PlayStation 5 operating system and all of the required files, you're only left with about 650 gigabytes of storage space. And considering how big games are these days, this can get full quite quickly. You do have the option of upgrading your SSD. However, keep in mind that the price of SSD storage is not that cheap in South Africa. Unlike the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5 doesn't have a quick resume feature whereby you can just jump back into the action of the game where you stopped. However, since load times are not that long, it's not really a sticking point. Running some multi-platform games comparatively on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, whilst there are some minor differences between both consoles, I honestly couldn't really notice much of a difference in terms of performance. Unless you really want to dive into technical specifications and trying to measure frames per second, etc., as an end gamer, you can't really notice much of a difference, even though on paper the Xbox Series X is slated to be a slightly more powerful console. Running PlayStation 4 games on the console allows you to use a PlayStation 4 controller on the console, which is a nifty feature if you have friends over and you don't have additional controllers. However, you cannot use PlayStation 4 controllers on PlayStation 5 games. Speaking of PlayStation 4 games, unlike Xbox, which has a smart delivery system, meaning that no matter which version of the game you purchase, whether it's Xbox One or Series X, you will always get the best version of the game on your console. The PlayStation 5 doesn't have such clear upgrade paths in terms of buying a PlayStation 4 game and automatically getting the PlayStation 5 version. This is done on a game-by-game basis, with some games offering you a free upgrade to the PlayStation 5, whereas other games charging you a slightly higher price on the PlayStation 5 version. Also, on the note of prices, surprisingly, the PlayStation Store on the PlayStation 5 has higher prices on the games and actually physically buying a copy of the game from a retailer like Macro or BT Games or Game. I find this quite strange because you're physically buying a copy from a store, whereas you're buying a digital copy, which should be cheaper. So all in all, is the PlayStation 5 a worthy purchase? For me, at the moment, I actually spend more time playing on my Xbox Series X. The reason for this is because of Game Pass on the Xbox Series X. For a low monthly subscription amount, you immediately have access to hundreds of titles, and Microsoft releases all of its first-party titles on Game Pass on day one of release, meaning you have access to the latest Microsoft titles immediately. So for me, this is something that's sorely lacking on the PlayStation 5. However, PlayStation is rumored to be looking at a Game Pass type of subscription model in the future, so maybe this will change. That being said, the PlayStation 5 is on the verge of receiving a large number of exclusive titles, such as God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Gran Turismo 7, all of which are AAA titles which really make me excited to play on the PlayStation 5. As though these games are built for PlayStation 5, I think we'll see these games really benchmark what the PlayStation 5 is capable of doing. If you are in the position of being able to purchase both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, I'd say that the PlayStation 5 is definitely a worthwhile investment. It's a really good console. However, if you had to choose between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, you really have to ask yourself the question: do you spend most of your time playing games which are available on both consoles? Or are you looking at playing mainly PlayStation 5 exclusive titles? If you spend most of your time playing multi-platform games which are available on both consoles, at present due to Game Pass, I would think that the Xbox Series X is a better value proposition and better value for money in terms of the amount of games you get with the console on a Game Pass subscription. That being said, if PlayStation 5 launches its own type of Game Pass subscription, I think it's a very strong contender for the Xbox Series X. Thank you very much for watching my review on the PlayStation 5. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more content like this, please remember to hit the subscribe button and also share my content with your friends. Until next time, happy gaming and take care.